Michael, what did you do? I enjoyed the interview.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
I have a statement on election committee activities over the past 8 or 9 months. And I'll begin with saying that pursuant to Morningside's bylaws, the Elections Committee is an autonomous body charged with the duty of overseeing the conduct of stockholder meetings, including the nomination of candidates. The procedures, functions, and requirements followed by the Election Committee in this instance have been in place for many years. The bylaws require each candidate for the board to submit a petition signed by stockholders from at least 25 apartments. The petition received from Daniel Lowenstein had 30 names, including that of the candidate. It was sent to the management office for signature verification in accordance with past practice. After being reviewed by the sales and transfer manager and 3 other persons, it was reported to me as chair of the Elections Committee that 6 of the signatures appeared to be invalid, including the candidate's signature, which consisted of his name spelled out and was not a signature. That brought the number of valid signatures to below 25. As soon as I heard of the problem, I called an emergency committee meeting. There was a consensus opinion to seek counsel. I received President Adana's permission to contact the co-op's attorney, Ezra Goodman, following past practice of having elections committees seek advice from counsel when questions arose. Mr. Goodman worked with the general manager and me in sending to the candidate a memorandum advising him which signatures were being challenged and offering him the opportunity to have 1 or more of them verified. I agreed to be available together with the general manager on Monday, March 24th from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. in the management office to meet with any of the persons whose names appeared on the petition so that she or he could verify the signature. It was and is my position that the signature of the candidate could not in any event qualify because it was his name spelled out in block letters and therefore did not constitute a signature. If it were allowed, any candidate could simply spell out names of Morningside stockholders and claim they were valid signatures, and there would be no way to verify them. Also, I believe that the intent of the 25 signature requirement on the petition is that it be 25 of the candidate's fellow stockholders, not counting the candidate. Council concurs with these positions. In conducting ourselves as we did, the general manager and I tried hard to be fair and inclusive. I did not want to contact signatories on the petition behind the candidate's back to verify signatures and possibly be accused of approaching them in the wrong manner. So I gave the candidate the opportunity to do so and to then have the signatories communicate with me. The committee is functioning and requirements are the same as they have been for decades. The accusations made by this candidate are not true or fair. The general manager and I bent over backwards to give the candidate every opportunity to validate the petition. That was finally done and the petition has been declared valid. I would like this statement to be included in the minutes of this meeting and also in the flash report.
Thank you. Do you have board report?
Yes. I have an announcement to make. The Elections Committee of 2013-14 is pleased to announce that 12 cooperators have answered the call to serve the community with 9 competing in the board, 5 for the Board of Director seats and 3 running for the elections committee seats. But I'd like to make the,
10 and 3.
I'm about to do that.
Oh, okay.
About to make the correction. Since Dan Lowenstein has been added, that changes the total to 10 for the board. The candidates for 2014 election to the board of directors are Detta All, James P. Campbell, Chi Chow Wan, Michael Dimon, Tova Francis, Madeline Kraft, Stuart Linder, Maitri Singh, Gabriel Suleiman, and of course Dan Lowenstein is added to the.
And he'll be added right after Stuart Linda's
Yes.
named alphabetically, correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And then to the elections committee, we have Edith Acosta, Margie Tashini, and Jana Titus.
Okay, I got it.
And finally, we have a proposal by the elections committee, Barbara Williams Henry, chair, on March 25th, 2014. Move that the board of directors approves the materials for the May 13th, 2014 annual meeting of the stockholders, subject to approval by legal counsel.
Okay, before we do anything, I have to go to page 4, because in here is the ballot,
Yes,
and there's a name,
May 13th.
and there's a ballot missing a name. So we're
Yes.
gonna say, would you like to say that the board of directors approves the materials of May 13, 24 annual meeting of stockholders as amended today, subject to
Yes.
approval? Is that
Yes.
okay? Is
Yes.
With everybody, that'll be the motion?
Yes.
Okay? Is there someone moving this motion? Well, it came from the committee, so it doesn't
Yes.
require a second.
But it needs a mover from the board.
It does? I thought it came from, it's a committee, it's an autonomous body coming to the board. I don't think we can second it, or move it, it's moved. Doesn't require a second. Oh, because she's not a board member, that's why we need it. You move it,
No.
I need a mover.
So moved.
Move it, John moves it, okay.
James.
Okay, James moves it, I'm happy. Let's not fight over the moving, it's fine. Somebody will get.
Let John do it.
Yes, John, you moved it, okay? So to read it again, that the board of directors approves the materials for the May 13, 2014 annual meeting of stockholders as amended, subject to approval by legal counsel. And everyone understands the amendment is that Dan Lowenstein is a candidate. Okay? All right. Any discussion? It was moved by John, and who seconded it? Nobody, that's for the committee, right? That's what I thought. All right, Mike, go ahead.
Couple of questions. One is, did the committee approve the ballot? Did the committee vote on the ballot? The committee voted on the ballot?
We haven't actually discussed it. This is the first thing doing it tonight, but we do approve.
But how did it come to the board?
Of council.
Listen, how did it come to the board? If the committee is putting it forward to the board, how did it come to the board if the committee didn't vote on it?
We have a consensus of opinion where we agree with council.
Who's the we?
The committee.
The committee,
The committee
the
members?
majority committee,
And you did this through what mechanism? Email or?
through our communication.
Because I saw some emails to the contrary. You said this is the first they're seeing it, right?
They're hearing it now, but they are aware of it through our own communication.
This is confusing to me.
It's been done. It's here. It's got to be printed.
No, I'm trying to figure out the process.
The process is the committee met a special meeting. They agreed to delete by consensus the name Dan Lowenstein because he did not meet the requirement. He was given, the committee knows, hang on there, just a minute. I'm only repeating what she said. I just want to, if I'm wrong, she'll correct me. She went to council to be sure what they were going to do. Council advised her, she wrote, the letter was sent to Dan, said, you have until Monday, 5 o'clock, to produce one of the signatures
I know that.
to balance
I
it.
know.
Once that was met, that Dan was approved, all of them were
Right,
approved.
so I guess then if you're putting your stuff into the minutes, I'd like to listen to the minutes as well, because it actually wasn't sent to the entire committee because we got emails to the contrary. So you're saying that the consensus. Pardon?
You're on that committee.
You got the email.
You,
to
we've
the
all,
whole
and
board.
actually, let me finish, don't
Just
interrupt.
be very clear, who's getting emails? And with-
We're asking Barbara if their
So
vote was taken.
can Barbara answer instead
The
of?
majority of the committee
Yeah.
voted.
Okay,
Voted?
can we have the names of those people who voted?
They're sitting here. Marcia Duffy, Edith Acosta, Susan,
So
St.
how
John
could they have voted
Parsons.
if this is the first they're seeing it? I don't get it. So you're saying this is the first they're seeing it?
Was
So how
it-
it's-
Was a vote taken on this material? Because that's what we're being asked to approve.
Yes.
I'm asking a committee, Marcia, was a vote taken on this?
Yes, I have approved this material.
You voted aye to approve all of this material.
I suggested three changes to it. I suggested them to Donna, that were optional as to whether she accepted them or what. They were simply matters of emphasizing certain materials that shareholders tend to ignore by making them bold or making them large or making them in capital letters, doing something to call the shareholders' attention to the necessity, really, of putting in the number of people they're voting for. That's something that's often left off. And people forget to put down their building number and apartment number on the ballot. And I make them bigger because it's so much easier for the election. I've been through an election, a couple of elections now, and it's so much easier when the voter gives us everything we need. So that was there was also in the earlier material, the initial material, something called an instructed ballot. All of a sudden, a proxy ballot turned into an instructed ballot, and then it turned back into a proxy ballot. And I simply suggested we use the same terminology throughout the whole set of instructions so that it was very clear what the object we were talking about was. It's true that there's a legal and technical matter of
Sounds like a good.
instructing the president and the secretary to accept these proxy ballots, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it just, I looked at it and I said, well, who's being instructed? Who's instructing them? What the heck is this instruction? Took me a while to figure it out. And I thought, well, this isn't necessary, so I suggested that
Proxy.
proxy ballots, that's what it is. Why change the name halfway through? And then change it back, and so those were the three things that I suggested that I believe Donna accepted.
Can we
the
accept
final
this, it's the
No.
standard,
Look,
you have a
I
problem with the
have a
ballot?
problem. Here's what I have a problem with. We, as was stated, the board actually has no authority over this, over the election. The elections committee does. We accept that. The issue is that it has been called, whether a vote was taken on these materials has been called into question by at least one of the members. An actual affirmative vote, where it's in the minutes that a vote was taken, okay, on these materials, okay? And if we don't have a vote from the elections committee on these materials, all of these materials can be called into question.
Okay.
So here's my potential solution for this, okay? I would suggest, in addition to the amendment there, that we say that subject to approval by a legal counsel and an affirmative vote by the elections committee.
You can poll them by phone or email, you can poll them by email, as long as you get a vote. You don't have to come, if
So
people
you're
can't
saying
make it.
you want a statement similar to what we just put
You
here,
need to
as
get an
amended?
approval of the materials affirmed by the elections committee, just like we affirmed
We-
everything.
we-
through the
we
vote.
did
We're not
this
arguing,
already.
no one's arguing with you,
We did
Dan.
this
All I
already.
instructed her was,
She's trying to explain.
Dan,
But it's
one
unclear
second.
whether that has
Dan.
actually happened.
Dan, 1 second. She will do it. We can put the words in. It will be done. It will be done by email. It doesn't require a full meeting, as long as it gets done. But I want to point out to everybody in this room, this ballot looks no different than any ballot that we've ever presented for election committee, because this ballot follows the procedure that Donna knows well. This has to pass the legal, I just want you to know, there's
Just missing a
nothing.
name. That's the point, that.
I'm not saying
that-
anything.
that
If she
version
wants to
was not
speak, let her
approved.
speak.
Yeah, that version wasn't approved.
What we said is amended.
But it's the
Can I
elections
finish
committee
now?
that needs to do this, not the board. We're advising them. The elections committee.
Could I
has to
finish
take
what
an
I was
affirmative
saying,
vote.
please?
You interrupted.
So the ballot has been done by Donna. There's nothing unique about this. She's been working with our attorneys for a zillion years. It will be voted on. you will have the answer. But there is nothing deceptive in what's presented to you. Marcia, I can't ask you to do that, okay? So we're gonna add the words, subject to approval by the committee and legal counsel. Everyone agreed? The language? By committee, by the committee, the elections committee, let's put it that way, so everyone's clear. And legal counsel. That is the motion that is before us. Okay? Anything else about this topic? Andy? Oh, Jeanette, I'm sorry, Jeanette, I missed you. I apologize, Jeanette. My left hand told me I missed you.
That's all right. You know, obviously, this process has been called into question, right? We've got the definition of signature nowhere to be found. There's no notice to the candidates regarding what constitutes a signature. We have nowhere to be found any kind of regulation indicating that a candidate signing their own petition is prohibited. And to me, when the regulations or rules governing the nominations are not to be found anywhere in writing for the candidates, this leads to arbitrary enforcement of rules and regulations that nobody's aware of. And I think it's bad for the corporation, it's bad for Morningside. So I think what this episode teaches, I think, or what we can take out of it, is that, you know, maybe the rules governing nominations should be explicitly set forth somewhere, like on our website, so that everybody's on notice regarding the rules governing nominations. And that's essentially it, basically. I mean, we want to prevent arbitrary enforcement of regulations that nobody knows exist, to avoid any kind of appearance of impropriety.
I think that's a great idea. I think we'll do that as soon as the committee forwards us an updated report. We'll get it on the website. I agree wholeheartedly. Someone else I saw. Well, Maitre's spoken about 3 times, so.
I am a candidate, I go public.
First, I have a question.
Can we have quiet while this conversation of the board is going on? Thank you.
So I have 2 things. First is the question, which is these signatures. So someone is checking, I guess, the sales and transfer office. Someone is checking these signatures. These signatures from the original shares that people, the stock certificates. What is the source of these signatures?
There are many sources, and there was a source as recently as March for one shareholder. So we don't just go to the beginning. If you've been here 50 years, we update and look at the latest signature if necessary.
So it's possible then, because I would like to encourage shareholders, especially shareholders who've been here a long time, to update their signature of record. I think that would be very helpful for these kind of things.
We do
I know
have
over in the last 40 years, my signature has definitely changed, although I was.
well, we do have records up to date, and we do check them.
For the record.
So I would like it to be in the minute.
40 years? Did you say 40?
My signature was a bit different when I was 12 years old.
I was just checking.
I would like it to be in the minutes that I encourage shareholders to update their signatures of record for the sake of avoiding problems with.
Anybody who wishes to do that, I'm sure we'll be able to, the management will put it in your folder.
So that's, I should, my second?
Absolutely.
Okay. And I'd also like to offer an amendment to this motion. And that is, recognizing the Elections Committee is solely responsible for MHHC elections, to ensure the fairness and legitimacy of the May 13, 2014 MHHC election, the board recommends that the Elections Committee promptly moves to retain the services of an impartial, independent organization to assist and advise on MHHC elections, starting with the upcoming 2014 election, and directs management to work with the Elections Committee to solicit bids from service providers in time for consideration of the important. I'd like to speak very briefly to. Give me a second.
It's against the bylaw. Who's second?
Give me a second, sure.
It's against the bylaw.
No, it's an amendment. And so I just would like to speak briefly to this.
Andy, could you do everyone a favor right now? Could you make that motion in about 5 minutes when we finish this motion.
It's an amendment.
It's not really an amendment, it's really the material that he's speaking to right now. What he's saying has nothing to do with the annual meeting that has to take place. The way it is now, the balloting, with the paper in here. That's all it has to do with. He's talking about something, an action that he wants to take place in terms of a neutral being hired to do something. That's a separate idea. I would like that held. Let's vote this up. I promise I'm coming back.
If you allow me, that's fine, I accept that.
Oh, good, thank you. Okay, now, Jerry.
You know, just to take one thing, the bylaws actually very clearly say signature.
How is signature defined though? Not what printing.
Because some people
Maybe
say.
that's how he's saying.
The signature is at the bottom of the
Yeah.
form, versus signature.
Well, no,
That's
the-
so-
that's-
Two different things.
I actually wasn't even talking about that.
I learned
But it
that.
clearly says sign and it clearly says signature.
And that's subject to, that's relative, I think. I mean, there's no.
Well, I mean, but it would,
Subject to interpretation.
it would be, you know, be matched to what is there. So, and, I mean, as far as the candidate signing the petition,
Again.
there is no, well, the candidate has to sign where the candidate signs, so the candidate, if he's gonna sign it, should sign it, I guess, in both
Really
areas.
have to generally
However,
see.
there is nothing that I can find that says that
Right.
you can't do it.
point.
So I don't see why one could not. I know I did that in mine, and when my partner signed it, I was upset that my partner signed it. But, so I think, you know, with this, it just shows that some of the things should be taken care of and maybe changed a little bit. The form itself, I know when I was out getting my signatures, people were saying, should I sign it, should I print, and I was like, my signature, kind of like yours, except for the one on the other side, is unreadable. So, because I sign my name literally hundreds of times a day, and I don't quite make all the consonants and everything. So when I sign my name on something like that, I sign it, I print it, so it's readable. So one suggestion might be for the election committee for next year is to amend the petition and clearly say, sign
Yes.
and print. And make sure you have the right building and apartment number. I'm very surprised that one of the signatures had the wrong apartment number. And so with that, it's difficult for the committee to know where to look. So I think it just needs to
We have a whole round.
be tightened up a little bit, and saying that a candidate could not sign it, I think does require a bylaws change, and I don't think that's something we should think about right now.
John?
After being a financial director, I'm gonna have to resubmit my signature, so check signing just changes over time. But I agree with what Jerry just said, and you know, it was pretty clear when I was a candidate what was needed and what had to happen. Also, I think you did a great job. This proves that the process works.
Yes.
When I was a candidate, I was told, get more than 25 because some of the signatures and some of the names might be challenged. Someone might make a mistake with their apartment number or so on and so forth. And that's exactly what happened. And it works. I don't understand what this whole purpose is about. This committee is separate from the board. They have gone out, they have done what is instructed to do, and they have presented the candidates following the rules of this corporation. And we can't make special exceptions for certain people. We can't just say the rules apply to everyone but someone.
Absolutely.
And I want to thank you for the job that you've done.
Thank you.
I have a whole list of people.
You're on the list. Okay, thank you.
John,
And you like to laugh. I mean, you yell at me right country.
John Clever.
The bottom line, I think, is that the procedure that the election committee used here is the same procedure they've been using for years. Now, that procedure may be flawed, as Jeanette says, and we need to look at that, but I think that's probably, I think we do need to look at it. But that's a question for another day. Let's vote on this.
Anybody else still want to speak?
There's a bunch of people you said on your.
I know.
Yeah.
Yvonne, okay, I'm gonna keep going. Yvonne.
Well, I just want to say, Jerry actually said part of what I wanted to say, which is about printing and writing your name. If you look at any document that you have to sign, you know, if you've ever flown on a plane international and you come in, you print your name in one place, and when it says signature, it's a signature, when it says print, it's print. And I do think there is a distinction. However, I do think that the form that we do use, and I know when I was a candidate, I was told you have to have a signature. And it is the candidate's responsibility, for example, because we know now that at least one person wrote the wrong apartment. I think another one had the wrong building next to their name, and another one had the wrong apartment. So I think if I were on the election, or if I were in the office actually checking that, and I look at the folder for apartment 11F in building 5, and I find an entirely different name, because the person actually lives in 11G, it's a problem. No one would really know who this person is supposed to be. So these things can happen. There are errors that can be made. When it comes to the printing or the signing, I think that form that we have, maybe it should be done as a landscape, and then print your name and sign your name.
That's gonna be my suggestion.
Yeah,
Right.
and, you know, so that there's enough space, because there's really not a lot of space. And I know people would ask me when I did run, they said, should I print it or should I sign it? And I always said, well, it says signature, you better sign it. But I think that the committee has always also given candidates a chance to rectify errors, as was done in this case.
Yes.
Me?
Yeah.
Okay. First of all, one question. Maybe I lost this, but what about the bylaws? Is that, isn't that in this election?
Without the bylaws.
Are we putting that on the ballot this year?
No, not.
No, not at the
they're not-
annual meeting.
We have,
No,
that's a whole other thing that's going on, Dan.
Yeah.
It's
at
not,
the
it's
annual
not on
meeting.
purpose, it's the amount of
It's
work.
time,
Okay.
it's, yeah.
So I want to speak to procedure, because people have said like this procedure worked the way it was supposed to. I think it clearly did not work the way it was supposed to, and here's the key issue. The key problem, Barbara, is not that it's not that we verified the signatures and some of them didn't match. What has happened in the past, and I've talked to past elections committee chairs about this, is that you check. It's your job, it's the elections committee's job to verify these signatures, okay? Not the candidates, first of all. And also, you don't send me a memo saying you have been disqualified from candidacy, and then go on and say, you know, as the committee has voted to disqualify you because these don't match, and then, but as chair, I will meet with some of with somebody if you produce them, and then what? But there's no resolution or anything like that. So it was not a good process.
Okay, let me
Hold on,
respond.
hold on a second.
If it was a good process, we wouldn't have had this problem. You could have contacted me before the elections committee met. You could have contacted any one of the, or management could have contacted any one of those folks and said, did you sign this? And it would have been over. And this whole thing would have been over.
Okay.
But the appearance of partisanship has leaked into here because this process did not work the way it was supposed to.
All right, I will
Stop for a
respond.
second, 1 second. Just so we're clear, you got a letter from the committee that said you're not a candidate, but if you do this by Monday, 5 p.m., you will be a candidate.
Incorrect.
It didn't say that?
No, it did not. It said you are not, the committee says you are not a candidate. It says, as chair, I have the, I will meet, Russell and I will meet with you to verify one of your signatures. It says nothing after that about whether candidacy will be reinstated. And given this, my questions about the committee's actions and process, I have no reason to believe that they would. They could say, well, it's too late anyway.
Okay.
Now, second,
Can Barbara?
1 second,
She's going to speak.
1 second.
I said we're not supposed
1
to
second.
speak to the other people.
1 second. The attorney, our attorney, has always believed that the election committee does not go to shareholders and check signatures. That's not permissible. They're not allowed to do that. Only the candidate can go back to the people that signed this petition. They cannot speak to people who signed the petition. It can be misinterpreted. As, by the way, there'll be a motion later this evening that will talk about this kind of thing happening. So the thing is that when they asked you to do it, that wasn't inappropriate, Dan. It was never inappropriate. All you had to do was satisfy them. Now, here's the issue. When she told you you weren't a candidate, it's because this had to go to printing and come to the board tonight.
Well, that's-
But the board knew that you were gonna be given an opportunity to amend this document.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that.
We all knew from her letter.
Her letter states, okay, dear Mr. Lowenstein, the Elections Committee has disqualified your nominating petition because it does not contain 25 valid signatures. Okay, please note that these are carefully checked, blah, blah, blah. And then it says, however, I, as chair of the Elections Committee and the general manager, are prepared to meet with you on Monday with any of the stockholders whose signature, or whose alleged signatures on these lines were disqualified, and if any such stockholder tells us they did in fact sign it, that their signature will be reinstated. However, it does not say that the candidacy was disqualified, will be reinstated. Okay? It does not, it also does not say that the committee said that the chair acted
Do you know what you're saying here right now in front of a group of people that understand the written language?
This is not, this is.
Do you realize what you're saying
This is
to
what our
us?
attorney gave us as a clear
Dan, you
document,
misstated
then we have another
that
problem.
the letter states that it's past due, and that's why she agreed to meet with you. Read the whole letter, don't paraphrase it.
If you don't recognize the mistakes that were made that got us to this point, then we have bigger problems, okay? And we'll have to see how this plays out.
You know, can I respond to?
Yes,
him?
please.
Okay. To begin with, you had more chances than God to comply with the rules and regulations. You did not complete your application until 2 days after the deadline. And I had repeatedly communicated with you to sign the green document. And you had no idea what I was talking about. Add to that, you were out of town the whole week. Your wife was getting the signatures. As it turned out, somebody else was getting the signatures. So you didn't come to me until midday Saturday, 2 days after the deadline, and still you didn't have it together.
Whoa.
So now how can you make all of these charges?
So this is retaliation, you're saying?
It is not retaliation. It is not retaliation. I am telling you who you are.
All right, I think we've beaten this horse until it's dry. You want it? Okay.
One thing is,
But he got it, John got
I know
it.
that a lot of, there's a lot of work goes into any kind of committee. So, even though I don't think that this process was so great, I do appreciate the work of the elections committee. I don't think it's easy. That's the first thing. The second thing is, to John Buscarella's point that, you should get more signatures, to, Jerry's point that, hey, everybody knows that, signature is X versus Y. That sort of stuff, to me, it's the difference between best practices versus minimum requirements. John's point and Jerry's point are about best practices. Would it have been better for Dan to do these other things? Yes. But what are the minimum requirements? We don't know. They're not written anywhere. They're not seen anywhere. And I think that's the problem. No, the final one, yeah, right. But I'm saying, what qualifies as a signature? What do you mean making this? This is an issue. Don't belittle or be dismissive of the point I'm making here. Please, look, clearly, there's an issue with respect to the process here, too. A disqualification before an investigation, that just doesn't sound right, okay? These kinds of rules and regulations should be written, they should be transparent, and they should be posted wherever, they should be posted in a location where candidates can see them, period. So, that was my comment.
I'd love to, but I think we have more speakers.
It's a problem.
I can't, Maitri wants to speak.
No, excuse me.
Oh, you called the question?
You have to vote.
I'm sorry.
on-
Question's been called.
Reread the motion as it's currently written.
That the board of directors approves the materials for the May 13, 20.
Can the audience stop speaking so we can?
That the board of directors approves the materials for the May 13, 2014 election, annual meeting of stockholders, subject to the approval by the elections committee and legal counsel.
Where's the addition?
That is
That is the addition.
Subject to the approval of the committee and legal counsel.
Where's the-
As amended, oh, I'm sorry, as amended, subject, I didn't write that, thank you, Dan. The annual meeting of stockholders, subject to the, that, let me get this right. As amended, the Board of Directors approves the materials for the May 13, 2014 annual meeting of stockholders, subject to approval as amended, then subject to approval, I was gonna put it at the end, but as amended, subject to approval by the Elections Committee and Legal Counsel.
By a vote.
Approval.
Approval means what it means, okay? We're ready to go to a vote. All in favor?
That's a huge difference.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. It's unanimous. Okay, this is done. Andy, the floor is yours.
And I need a copy of whatever.
I have this one right here.
Thank you. By the way, thank you very much, Barbara, for your hard work. We appreciate it.